name's Justin Price, and I'm the creator of the biomechanics method, which provides corrective exercise education for health and fitness professionals. Today I want to show you a few strategies to help improve movement to decrease pain. Now, we all know that analyzing movement is very difficult, but I recommend doing a structural assessment or a simple postural evaluation before someone moves or before you put them through functionally integrated movements, so you're more aware of where their movement dysfunction or limitations may lie. For example, if you're looking at a client and you've assessed that they may have an anterior pelvic tilt and excessive lumbar lordosis, you can make certain assumptions about the way they move, or when they do move, if they experience pain, where you may be doing some exercises or corrective exercise to help improve their movement to decrease their pain. For example, if someone has this anterior pelvic tilt and excessive lumbar lordosis, when you're assessing them when they're static or standing, it can tell you that the muscles that slow down the forces of nature, so gravity and ground reaction forces, it can tell you that those muscles may have not worked correctly and the joints of that area have experienced more stress as a result. For example, if I'm going to perform, say, a functionally integrated movement like this ViPR squat under leg reach to overhead press, so it's going to look like this. As I go up into extension, or say your client goes up into extension and they complain that their lower back hurts, we're going to know or be able to assume where the problem may lie. For example, that person with the anterior pelvic tilt and excessive lower lordosis, we know that the muscles that slow them down into extension, so their abdominals and hip flexors, may not be lengthening correctly, and their skeletal structures of the lumbar spine may be experiencing more stress as a result. So what we need to do is address those structures, the hip flexors and the abdominals, to lengthen more effectively under load, so that when I go over the head with the ViPR, those structures can lengthen and the stress at my back will be much less, and I'll have much less pain and function more correctly. So what you'll do first is you'll massage those structures or perform self-myofascial release. This will help recondition the tissues so that they can lengthen more correctly. It's kind of like chewing gum before you blow a bubble, right? You've got to massage those tissues before you start to stretch them. So I'm going to massage my hip flexors and abdominals. With the foam roller, I can get in here and get the hip flexors as they cross the hip. I can use the foam roller or a tennis ball to get into the hip flexors and abdominals. So the hip flexors come from the lumbar spine, cross the pelvis and insert on the leg. So I can now get into the hip flexors at the lumbar spine level with a tennis ball. I can lift up to help extend the spine as I release the tissues. So I'm going to do all the way down from just above the belly button all the way down to the top of the hip. So foam roll the hip flexors and the abdominals. Now that those tissues are possibly a little bit healthier and able to stretch, I'm going to stretch the hip flexors and abdominals together. So I'm just going to go into a simple kneeling hip flexor and abdominal stretch. And already I'm able to lengthen these tissues a little bit more under load, which is helping decelerate this force of my arm going over my head to the structures of my lumbar spine. So I'm into my isolated hip flexor and abdominal stretch. When I've done that sufficiently, I just integrate that back into this movement where I can now step back, which is similar to what I'm going to do with the ViPR in a minute. So now I'm integrating my hip flexors and abdominals, making sure that they lengthen and load to decelerate the stress to my back. I may do that a few times. Okay, it's feeling much better. I can feel these lengthening and no strain to my back. Then I can grab the ViPR again, and I'm good to go if I've done both sides. And now I'm extending my hip and spine. The hip flexors and abdominals are lengthening, and there's less stress to my lumbar spine. You can recommend your clients do that as a kind of a superset to their dynamic activities. So they may be doing the ViPR exercise. They can then, while they're resting, do these corrective exercises, or you can instruct them to do them as a warm-up before they exercise, or possibly as homework before they come to meet you for their functionally fun integrated workouts. So that's how you assess and how you correct movement to decrease pain.